Star
Yeah.
Wars has very ambiguous titles, but I appreciate the Phantom Menace because it's obviously referring to Palpatine, I think. It's not referring to
I
Maul, is it?
uh I have
Who knows? See, it's
different.
ambiguous. What?
I think it's actually relating to Jar Jar. Laugh at me all
Oh
you
my
want,
god, let's talk about Jar
but
Jar Binks. Oh
until you
my
go
god.
down the loophole of the conspiracy videos on YouTube,
Jar Jar is a Sith Lord.
I
Weirdo.
100% believe they were intending on him to be a Sith Lord.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Rewatch podcast. My name is Samuel.
And I'm Jaden.
This is a podcast where we rewatch classic or current films weekly and then decide whether they deserve a rewatch from you. This week, we rewatched Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. But before we get into it, we've got a few important milestones this week that I just want to run through quickly. So we've hit 25 followers on Instagram, which is half a milestone because, you know, we consider 50 a milestone, but
Yep.
25, we're on the way there. Our first YouTube video has 100 views, which is pretty awesome. But most importantly, we've had our first ever comment come in from my boy Iran. So I'm just going to read that out. We're going to respond to him right here, right now, because that's what we do at the Rewatch. Iran writes, "Hey, long-time listener from Melbourne here. Been hooked ever since your second episode. However, I wanted to inquire about whether or not you guys could engage in discourse regarding the ideal romantic comedy to watch with the lads." So obviously Iran's got a bit of an issue here and he's looked to the Rewatch to help solve such issue. Obviously he wants to get the boys together for a good evening, wants to put on a good romantic comedy. And us being particularly well versed in watching movies, I guess, have the power to recommend something. So what are your thoughts, Jaden?
I'm not too good at romantic comedies. I haven't watched any that I know of.
That is a surprise.
Yeah, well, it's just not my sort of cup of tea. Such a weird comment to respond to.
We love it. So you got no
I see you wrote
recommendations?
down some there, Sam. What did you
Oh,
have down?
yes, I love a good romantic comedy, actually. Love Actually has been one of my favourite ones. That's a Christmas movie, though, so maybe, you know, get the boys round for a Christmas lunch or something like that.
Some eggnog going.
Chuck on some Love Actually, starring Hugh Grant, Colin Firth, Liam Neeson, who's in this movie.
Who's in this movie? Yeah.
Bit of a different character in Love Actually. But I think Love Actually is pretty good, as long as you don't read into the stories too much, because it gets into a bit of infidelity at one stage. So I don't exactly like that, but
Yeah.
so some people don't like Love Actually too much, but I'll recommend that one. Also, another one that I have. This is like the two romantic comedies that I've watched
That you've
ever. I
ever
promised.
watched.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I promise. Okay. Crazy Stupid Love is another great one. Stars Ryan Gosling, who we love, Emma Stone, who I also love, and Steve Carell, who's hilarious. So that's a great one too.
Have you seen The Office?
Yeah. Some
you
of it.
have?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, good stuff. So we hope that solves Iran's issue. Look forward to getting back, seeing him, putting on some Crazy Stupid Love and just, you know, having a good time. We love it. But yeah, thanks to Iran for the support and the comment. If any listeners would like to provide us with a question or even a statement that you want us to read on the podcast, we'd love for you to send us a DM or make a comment on any Instagram post.
And just quickly, we have also started on Instagram posting the ratings of the films that we have reviewed.
Yes.
Which goes from an A to an F scale, A being the best and F being the worst. We will also tack that on the end of each podcast, so you can listen to it as well and figure out what our rating is. but we also post the rating on our Instagrams if you wanted to check them out.
This is an idea that I pushed back on at the start. That's why we're doing it now, only implementing it now, because I don't like the fact that people rate a movie like a 9.4 and then rate a different movie like a 9.6. Like, what's the difference? Come on, like, it's a stupid way of rating movies. Like, you either want to watch it or you don't. However, I do, appreciate the thought of, being able to give a rating, a relatively broad rating. I
think the bigger increments per, letter or number, the better. Like, I understand that, having a 9.2, what's the difference between a 9.2 and a 9.3? But that jump from like a 9 to a 10, obviously there's quite a big difference there.
Yeah.
A really good film versus a really, like, a perfect film.
Yeah. Yeah. So we go from A to F. There are no like A pluses or A minuses. It's just A, B, C, D, E, F.
Yep.
So a lot of movies will end up in a similar tier. So far, we've got Into the Spider-Verse is an A, Joker is an A, and we'll give a rating to this movie at the very end.
Yep. Also,
another thing that we're adding, every week, just for a couple minutes, I'm going to talk about the music of the movie that we rewatched this week. And every week, I'm going to add a maximum of 2 tracks from the official soundtrack of the movie that we watched to the official Rewatch playlist, which you can find in the YouTube description.
Yep.
It's just going to be a cool way to keep track of some of the awesome songs that we've encountered along our review process. So to recap so far in the playlist, got 2 songs from Into the Spider-Verse. And by the way, it's a minimum of 1 track, maximum of 2. So every week there will be 1 track from
at least one.
Yeah, at least one.
Yep.
But in order to stop myself from getting carried away with great soundtracks like Into the Spider-Verse, I have to cap it at 2. Mm-hmm. So the playlist so far is Sunflower, What's Up Danger. Then for Joker, we have Rock and Roll Part 2, which is the Joker Stairs song. Brilliant song.
Mm-hmm.
We also have Call Me Joker, which is the orchestral number at the end of the film, which is just brilliant. I really recommend that everybody go and listen to that movie. That song.
I like your Joker picks, but I would have done something different, but that's fine.
For Joker?
Yeah. I would have gone with some Frank Sinatra. I would have done That's Life, and I would have done, I think his name's Jimmy Dunham. Let me double check.
Yeah, that's fair enough. There are some great songs that really fit into the theme of that movie, but
Jimmy Durante, Smile.
I think Rock and Roll Part 2 is the most famous one, considering it is the Joker Stairs song. And true. I had to put Call Me Joker in there because I think it's a brilliant orchestral number.
Yeah.
It helped Joker win the Oscar for Best Original Music. So, so that was my 2 picks. Maybe we can have a discussion and decide as a collective what songs go in. But this week, I don't think you're going to resist me on this one. Duel of the Fates is going in there. Only one from the movie that we rewatched this week. So
I couldn't think of another one that I would put in.
There are some good songs from the Battle of Naboo. You'd know them from Star Wars Battlefront 2. They play quite often in that game.
Yeah.
And some good tracks, but Duel of the Fates obviously a standout, one of the most iconic Star Wars songs of all time.
Yeah.
So that has a well-deserved spot in this playlist.
For sure.
What else did we rewatch this week, or what else did we watch this week? Have you watched anything?
Just continuing on with Suits. I think I'm up to really early on season 4, but I haven't watched anything else.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, it's a fantastic series.
Yeah.
I watched A Knight's Tale, the movie. This is a movie that I remember seeing a glimpse of when I was about 10. And it's a great film starring Heath Ledger, one of your favourite actors.
Mm-hmm.
Heath Ledger in this instance is actually Mike Ross of the medieval era. He's a peasant who pretends to be a knight.
He's a fraud.
Yeah, he's a fraud. And he enters all these competitions against knights. It's really, really awesome movie. It's a comedy, so it doesn't take itself too seriously. And it also, funnily enough, the most iconic scene is it's a jousting competition. So, you know, when they ride the horses towards each other with big poles. We Will Rock You is the song that plays in the background. So,
that's a weird choice.
And all of the crowd are clapping along, and the horns that like the peasants are blowing, the electric guitar noises. So there's no like rock band there, because this is set in the medieval era, but it uses current music. So
that's really strange.
Also some AC/DC in there. Some good Akadaka music for the montages of sword fights and everything like that. So pretty awesome movie.
Nice.
So I enjoyed that. Let's get into it, shall we?
Yeah.
Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, is a 1999 American epic space opera film written and directed by our boy, George Lucas. It stars some amazing actors. Liam Neeson, Ewan McGregor, Natalie Portman, the main ones. Obviously, we have the Anthony Daniels as C-3PO and whoever Darth Maul is, but yeah. So
Ray Parker, I think.
I think so, yeah. Do you want to give a brief summary of the story, or shall I?
Okay, I'll go ahead and do that. Oh no, Ray Parker. I'm thinking of Ghostbusters. I'm not sure who did it. I think his name was Ray though.
Yeah, and I think you're right.
This is
I think Ray Parker, the Clone Wars especially.
Ray Park, that's his name.
Oh yeah.
Yep. Anyways, so the Phantom Menace is basically an origin story, I guess you could say, of the chosen one, Anakin Skywalker. It also is the prequel to the original trilogy of the 3 Star Wars films that were released, I think 1980, just before 1980. I think it was 1977. So it's preceding all of the, Luke Skywalker, and Darth Vader and all that. So it gives us, another era of Star Wars to look forward to. And it's basically Anakin Skywalker, Qui-Gon Jinn, and Obi-Wan Kenobi. Obi-Wan Kenobi and Qui-Gon Jinn in general trying to save Naboo from the Trade Federation's army, and trying to sign a deal that they don't really want to go ahead with. Yeah, it's politics. It's not the best Star Wars film out there, but yeah,
I have an issue with the politics. It's so boring.
The politics,
We'll get to that. But yeah, so we follow Qui-Gon Jinn, Obi-Wan as they try to protect Padme, and in doing so, they stumble upon Anakin Skywalker, who's this crazy powerful kid, essentially.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's like, how old is he in this movie? Probably about 10.
I'd say about 10, 11,
he's an annoying little 10-year-old. But I think, a lot of people don't like Anakin Skywalker in this movie. But
yeah, they don't like the actor, but yeah.
I think that's a perfect portrayal of a 10-year-old.
That is true.
Yeah.
I just can't see the connection between Hayden Christensen's Anakin Skywalker and
Fair enough.
I'm not sure who plays him in this film, but the Anakin Skywalker in this film, it just seems so different to me.
Yeah, they don't exactly look alike either. So
yeah, I
think he's blonde in this. I don't know. I don't know what they were thinking. But anyway, let's get into some things that we liked. I'll start it off with my lord. Is that
legal?
Legal.
I love the memes that come from this film in particular. There's so many. That goes with every Star Wars film. It's just brilliant.
I just love Vice Gunray's voice in this movie, who's like one of the aliens for the Trade Federation.
Yeah.
It's like, the Senate. He sounds so weird.
My lord, is that legal?
We love it. Also, another thing that I noticed in this movie is that it's definitely been touched up with some CGI effects.
Oh my god.
Something that I didn't like is that this movie has a lot of CGI. I think George Lucas got a bit trigger happy. He was like, wanting to push the boundaries, obviously, and he does in many ways. And there are some scenes that look spectacular in this movie. However, CGIing people like Jar Jar Binks and aliens and like full CGI, it just looks absolutely terrible.
Yeah, I think there's a point where CGI, it's used to excel how good a shot can look. But George Lucas, he just went a bit over the top, It's kind of like chucking CGI on everything that he can, even though it doesn't need it,
Yeah, 100%. I think that's probably consistent throughout the whole prequel trilogy as well. But
yeah.
To be honest, I think that the original movies actually look better because they're mostly practical effects. So
apart from when he went back and tried to put CGI in the original films as well, when he made the new copies of them and sold them in, I think it was early 2000s.
Yeah. George Lucas just loves a bit of CGI. But you can't blame him. He's a genius. I want to talk about a couple characters in this movie. Qui-Gon Jinn is amazing. Liam Neeson, fantastic. I love his character. I think he really holds the movie together. I think he carries this movie in a respect because a lot of people reference Ewan McGregor as Obi-Wan Kenobi as carrying the prequel trilogy. However, in this movie, Ewan McGregor doesn't have a lot to do and he's kind of pushed to the side because he's just a Padawan. So, but Qui-Gon Jinn really takes center stage and I think, he's cool, he's confident, he's defiant of the Jedi Council, which is the thing that we also like.
I think that's what Anakin picked up on, the sort of defiance of the Council. I think he got it from Qui-Gon.
Yeah, maybe. And Qui-Gon's also quick to become sort of a father figure for Anakin Skywalker.
Yeah.
Which makes sense because he's confident. He's got control of things. He's obviously Liam Neeson is a tall actor, and I think he has the stature of a real powerful Jedi. You can just look at him and it's like that guy's a badass, and like you do not want to meet him in a fight with a lightsaber.
Yeah, when I think of a Jedi, I think of Qui-Gon Jinn as the sort of the top Jedi. That's who started it all. Well, not who started it all, but in chronological order, he was one of the first.
100%. I really, really enjoyed Qui-Gon Jinn. I think he's actually one of my favourite Star Wars characters. I think it's in the top 5, maybe.
Wow.
For me.
And considering the screen time that he got, that's quite big.
It makes me sad almost. Obviously, we'll get towards the end shortly, but... But yeah, I really enjoyed Qui-Gon Jinn. I also enjoyed R2-D2's origin story. How awesome was that? We get
That's
R2-D2.
how you do an origin story, yeah.
Yeah, he's just on the ship, fixing everything. All of his droid colleagues are just getting blown to pieces.
Yeah.
But no, R2's got this. What a legend.
That's how you do it, unlike Han Solo. God, that wasn't okay, that origin story.
Oh, you mean in the Solo movie?
Yeah, in the Solo movie.
Yeah, fair enough. We also get C-3PO's introduction to R2-D2, which I also loved in this movie. For a short instance, they don't see each other again for a long time, but C-3PO does show up in Attack of the Clones, so it'd be interesting to track his C-3PO's progress, because Anakin just leaves him. Poor C-3PO. But yeah, let's talk about Darth Maul as well. What an awesome design of a character.
I think he's my favourite villain in the Star Wars universe.
Oh, Darth Vader's like, that's tough. That's tough on Vader.
I mean, that Ray Park, his athleticity, I don't know how to say that.
Yeah, his athleticism.
It just kind of made the character. I mean, having an actor that can play, such a, jumpy character, and he's meant to be like that. It was just perfect. Yeah. And seeing him return in the Clone Wars, doing the what's it called?
Choreography for the final fight with Ahsoka.
The mocap. That was incredible. You could see it in the fight as well.
100%.
How he was moving. Yeah, but just such a great actor for Darth Maul, and I really hope they don't replace him in the Kenobi series, because I think he's rumored to come back for that.
Really? I do want Liam Neeson in there. I think Liam Neeson is the actual one of the characters that actually makes sense to appear in the Kenobi series.
In the Kenobi series, I do agree with that.
So looking forward to the possibility of that happening. let's talk about the pod race because I really liked that scene. What are your thoughts?
I think the CGI in it was actually pretty good,
Yeah,
to be
I
honest.
agree. Yeah, the CGI was amazing.
Yeah, and making all of the different ships, and all the different characters and such. It was, you could see it as a filler sort of bit in the movie, but it was also quite fun to watch. Just the sort of, there was obviously a big reason behind it and bringing Anakin out of slavery, but it was definitely a filler scene, but I still enjoyed it nevertheless. I mean, I found it quite interesting.
I think it's a second best sequence in this movie, to be honest.
What's your first?
Oh, you know what it is.
Yeah.
We'll get to that. We'll get to that. But for now, I really like the sound design in the pod race. The sounds of the engines are really, really awesome. And I enjoyed the cinematography. The camera is always on the left side of the pod races. Did you notice that?
No, I
So
didn't.
it's very like race, like highlights-esque, It's very, like it was an actual race. The camera was always going from left to right, never from right to left.
Didn't know that.
Yeah, it sort of helps you, pay attention to what's going on. You can follow what's going on.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I enjoyed that as well. So after the pod race, obviously Anakin wins. Anakin's bought himself freedom, but unfortunately his mother is left behind.
Yeah.
Anakin's like, oh, that sucks to leave my mother behind, but oh well, I can go and become a
I want
Jedi.
to be a Jedi.
Oh, good. I mean, wouldn't anybody want to be a Jedi? But I mean, yeah,
That's a tough decision
that is a
still.
tough decision.
Yeah.
And it's definitely something that influences Anakin's character throughout the whole
For
series.
sure. Yeah.
It's taken away from his mother at a very young age, essentially, by our standards. However, by the Jedi standards, he's too old.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that because it's something I didn't like in that movie. But anyway, when Anakin does win his freedom, Qui-Gon Jinn is transporting him back to the ship, and Darth Maul appears, and Qui-Gon Jinn, they have a one-on-one fight, which I really enjoyed. The sand was rising up around them because they're doing all these quick moves. And how good is the choreography in the prequels, by the way, in terms of the fight choreography?
Some of the best in the actual Star Wars films, to be honest.
Yeah.
In the 9 that we have.
Exactly.
I mean, it blows The Rise of Skywalker out of the park in terms of choreography. I mean, it makes
Qui-Gon Jinn would take care of Rey and Kylo Ren, 100%.
He would take care of the whole cast in The Rise of Skywalker.
100%. I do appreciate the fact that when Qui-Gon's fighting Maul, afterwards, he collapses of exhaustion.
Yeah.
It's like he's unfit because obviously the Sith have not been around for a millennia,
For
essentially.
ages, yeah.
And Qui-Gon's fighting this guy who he doesn't even know who he is. He's got a red lightsaber though, so he must be a bad guy. And Qui-Gon afterwards, he's like panting. He's like he's unfit. I just enjoyed that for some reason.
It's very realistic, though.
Yeah, it humanizes them a bit.
Yeah.
Not a lot of, all-powerful, I've got this, Rey Skywalker moments.
We've got so much to talk about with The Rise of Skywalker.
I also enjoyed Palpatine manipulating the politics in this movie, though.
Yeah.
The politics in this movie is so boring.
It's not the best.
Essentially, the main villain of the film is a trade federation, and we're not exactly explained as to why the trade federation is bad. We're just supposed to assume that because they have droids, they're not good guys.
Yeah.
They shoot at Jedi. So yeah, I didn't really enjoy that. But the politics is so boring.
Yeah, it's not the best. And, making the Trade Federation the main villain in quotations, it wasn't the best idea. I mean, it's such a waste of Darth Maul. Like, what an incredible character. They could have done so much more with that character. And obviously they did later on. But obviously they didn't intend that in this film. I think this is where, he was meant to die. It was kind of a waste of a character. They just could have built on that so much more. And him being, what's his species called?
Is it Zabrak, maybe?
Zabrak. Him being a Zabrak It's just
with the
different,
horns on his head.
Yeah.
Anybody who doesn't know what a Zabrak is.
He looks cool. It's such a cool looking character.
Yeah. I did appreciate, though, the politics scenes. You can sort of see Palpatine, quietly, manipulating things behind the scenes.
Yeah.
So I appreciate that.
If I was to watch this film and have not watched the original trilogy prior to it, I still don't think I would have picked up on Palpatine, obviously, spoiler alert, Palpatine being the Emperor. I don't think I would have picked up on it, to be honest.
That's fair enough. I think there's a shot towards the end that I want to talk about.
Yeah,
so I really, really enjoyed that. And I think it sort of in that instance tells you Palps is there. He's manipulating things. He's the bad guy.
Yeah.
But yeah, for most of this film, the focus isn't on him, which is how Palpatine wants it to be. Because he's just manipulating things when nobody's looking.
Sort of in the background. He's a background character, but he's really one of the biggest characters.
Yeah, I just want to go back to Qui-Gon Jinn for a second. He's got some good quotes here. When he's talking to Anakin, he says, "Your focus is your reality. Stay close to me and you'll be okay."
Mm-hmm.
Well, Anakin can't exactly stay close to Qui-Gon Jinn after this movie, can he?
No.
It's very unfortunate. Also to Padme, he says, "I can only protect you, not fight a war for you," which makes me believe that if Qui-Gon was still around by the events of the Clone Wars, things may have been different. Qui-Gon may have been like, "Oh, I'm leaving the Jedi. I'm not fighting a war." Because he's this very idealistic Jedi in a sense.
Jedi Knight, yeah.
Yeah, he's definitely more human. He's not a Mace Windu who's just ignorant, lazy, and just sits down in his chair all day.
Mace Windu's one of my least favourite Jedi. I can say that for sure.
I don't like him in this movie at all, to be honest.
Yeah.
But yeah, so before we get to some of the things that we didn't like, let's talk about the best sequence in this movie.
I would say one of the best fight sequences in the Star Wars films.
If not the best, in my opinion.
I would leave that to Revenge of the Sith, but
that's the other one. That's the other one. However, I think this one takes it for me because I want to talk. Obviously, the stakes in Revenge of the Sith are very high as well. But in this instance, it's called The Duel of the Fates, right? That's the song that plays in the background. What a fantastic song, by the way.
Great theme, yeah.
For this final battle. It's incredible. But the stakes in this battle are everything. Because it's a matter of who's going to be able to train Anakin Skywalker, who's this protege, this up-and-coming, the chosen one.
Yeah, the chosen one in a sense, yeah.
Is it going to be this confident, cool, but defiant Jedi in Qui-Gon Jinn, who's going to be a father to Anakin Skywalker and really nurture him?
Yeah.
Or is it going to be Obi-Wan, who kind of doesn't really want Anakin at this stage? He's sort of just, he's on his way to becoming a Jedi Knight, but he's not interested in this little kid who's a bit arrogant and just goes around, flying pod races and stuff. So it's a duel of the fates, because if Qui-Gon Jinn was successful in this duel and Darth Maul was killed and Qui-Gon lived, how's Anakin Skywalker's story going to change?
It would have changed drastically, I think.
Yeah.
Obi-Wan was still a really good mentor for Anakin, but I think Qui-Gon's sort of wisdom and his experience with the Jedi, being a Jedi, I should say, it would have done a lot of things differently from what Obi-Wan had intended to do, I reckon.
Yeah, 100%. It's the duel of the fates because it's a duel that will decide Anakin's fate, and I think
it's a really good song title. It's very fitting, I should say.
Yeah, the stakes don't get much higher than that. So yeah, obviously we have at the start of the battle, Darth Maul, shrugs off his cape. He does the awesome, extends both of his lightsabers. Audiences in 1999 were like, "Wait, you can have two lightsabers? What?"
Yeah,
because they've only ever seen,
my lord, is that legal?
This is getting out of hand. No, there are two of them. Love that. So yeah, I think this whole battle is fantastic.
Yeah, and going on with the Duel of the Fates title, I'm not sure if you knew this, but the final episode, episode 9, its title was actually thought to be Duel of the Fates. I think that was one of the titles that they were deciding whether to choose.
Oh yeah.
And they actually went for The Rise of Skywalker, which is terrible.
I think Rise of Skywalker is a better name for this movie, to be honest.
For this film here?
Yeah.
Yeah. If they switched it around, it would have been great. But I think if they had left this one for the Phantom Menace and had episode 9 for Duel of the Fates, it would have been great. Because Duel of the Fates in episode 9 is also very fitting, you know, considering we have Kylo Ren on one side and Rey Skywalker on the other side. You know, will Kylo, you know, come to the light side, and you know, is Rey going to turn to the dark side? Kind of that Duel of the Fates as well. That would have just worked incredibly. But also having Phantom Menace, I can understand why you don't like the title, and I think it's because
I do like the title, but I feel like, you know, Rise of Skywalker
would have been better in this one.
Star Wars has very ambiguous titles, but I appreciate the Phantom Menace because it's obviously referring to Palpatine, I think. It's not referring to Maul, is it?
I have...
Who knows? See, it's ambiguous. What?
I think it's actually relating to Jar Jar. Laugh at me all you want.
Oh my god, let's talk about Jar Jar Binks.
Until you go down the loophole of the conspiracy videos on YouTube.
Jar Jar is a Sith Lord. Weird.
I 100% believe they were intending on him to be a Sith Lord. Have you seen those videos?
I've seen all of the Star Wars theories. I went into The Force Awakens thinking that it might be possible that Luke Skywalker was Kylo Ren. And that, like, Snoke was, like, Mace Windu.
I did believe the Mace Windu one. That was very fitting.
I mean, that would have been better.
It would have.
What we got in the end. But anyway, back to this movie.
Because there's actually parts where George Lucas says Jar Jar is the key to all of this.
Yeah, I think he's just having a laugh, though.
I don't know. I have different sort of thoughts on that.
All right, well, let's keep talking about the final battle. Once we wrap up on that, we can talk about Jar Jar Binks and all the wonderful theories that go along with him. At one stage in this final battle, Darth Maul kicks Obi-Wan off the high ground. Potential learning experience for Obi-Wan there. But after that, Qui-Gon Jinn elbows Darth Maul, and then literally backhand slaps him. I thought that was funny. I just slow it down and look at that again, because he literally just slaps Darth Maul. He's like, hey, if you kick my Padawan off that platform again, I'm going to slap you. And then he's like, pow, right there. I love that from Qui-Gon.
Yeah.
The laser wall that blocks Obi-Wan Kenobi and Qui-Gon Jinn and Maul, it separates all of them during the heat of the battle. I really like that because it's so intense.
Yeah.
And then everything stops, and then they're just, you know, standing there looking at each other. There we go. All right, we're back. So we're just talking about the laser wall blocking everybody off in the final battle. Just want to talk about the differences that the differences of all the characters' actions when that happens. So Darth Maul, he's engulfed in rage. He's pacing back and two. He's waiting to, you know, strike to kill these two Jedi.
Yeah.
Qui-Gon Jinn's like, this is okay. He just takes a knee. How politically correct of him, by the way.
Yeah.
And he just meditates. And then Obi-Wan is just standing there and he just looks so worried. He's just like, he doesn't know what to do. And I think it's a really nice contrast for all of the characters. And I love when Qui-Gon, when the laser wall does go away, Qui-Gon just opens his eyes and then he's right back in it. So yeah, another good thing about that 1v1 or that 2v1 duel. Obviously Qui-Gon dies because, you know, Darth Maul's pretty good at his job. What can we say? And then obviously the music cuts a bit and Obi-Wan, he's blocked off from Qui-Gon Jinn. He's just seen his master killed.
Yeah,
He gets a bit angry, gets a bit emotional.
He looks very, very frustrated, and seeing the choreography that follows.
He's so mad.
Follows it after the electric doors turn off, and he runs out. You know, he's literally. It's kind of reminiscent to Kylo Ren, actually. How his lightsaber hits. You know, he puts force into them. He's really smashing it down.
So emotional. I think it's the one time in this entire saga that Obi-Wan, you know, lets his emotions come out a bit.
Yeah. He's very good at, you know, keeping them to himself, and he always tells Anakin to do it as well. But, you know, I think it's quite fitting as well, because he is quite, you know, he's still a Padawan at this stage. Not a Padawan, I should say, an apprentice. He's still an apprentice at this stage, so he doesn't, you know the full sort of grasp on, you know, keeping your emotions to yourself. But I think that's kind of, he develops that sort of attribute as he goes along, and he becomes Qui-Gon Jinn in a sense. You know, he turns into what his master was.
Yeah, when Obi-Wan comes out and it's just him and Maul, Qui-Gon's just been killed. Obi-Wan's furious. Obi-Wan goes absolutely nuts at Maul.
Berserk.
I've not seen lightsaber. I mean, obviously the duel in Revenge of the Sith, you know, the choreography there, and the fight style from Obi-Wan is quite ferocious. But in this instance, he's just going at it. I really love that. It's just pure emotion, but it's not just emotion; it's skill, and he just steps it up a notch. I love it. But yeah, so then obviously Obi-Wan doesn't have the high ground. He gets pushed into a shaft, I guess. Yeah. And he
always finds a way, though. He always finds a way to get the high ground.
He jumps up. This is my theory, though. All right, so at the end of this battle, towards the end, rather, Qui-Gon Jinn's gone down. Obi-Wan's not looking too good against Maul. Perhaps his emotions are getting the better of him, in a sense.
Yeah.
Darth Maul is just the more effective fighter. Kicks Obi-Wan into this shaft. Obi-Wan's forced to, climb... try to stay on.
He finds a way to get the high ground.
Yes,
each time.
I think I have a theory about this, and I want to discuss it, because in that instance, there is no way that Darth Maul should have been killed.
Darth Maul stands there.
Darth Maul has the high ground.
Yeah.
Obi-Wan is without a lightsaber. He's, dangling down like 5 meters below Maul.
Yeah.
But he finds a way. And my theory about the whole Obi-Wan likes the high ground thing is that if something like that happened to you, you'd think about it constantly. Like, wow, I came so close to death in that instance. Like, I should not be alive. He should have killed me. Like, because the high ground is effective. And I think Obi-Wan took that and sort of went, if somebody's in a higher position as to you, geographically. Yeah. If somebody has the high ground, they have such an advantage. And so that's why, Obi-Wan's always like, I have the high ground.
It's over, Anakin.
It's over, Anakin.
I have the high ground.
Love it. But yeah, so I think that might be why Obi-Wan's got a bit of a love affair with the high grounds.
Yeah. And now that I'm thinking about it, actually, this is a bit off topic of Obi-Wan. Darth Maul, he's actually tried to stop Anakin that many times in, obviously, the Phantom Menace and then in the Clone Wars. He's actually tried to save the Republic so many times.
Yeah, 100%.
But no one gives him any credit for it.
Yeah.
It's so incredible how he's kind of, an anti-villain.
Yeah, Maul's a great character. But in this movie, I don't think he's a great character. I just think he has amazing presence, and the design of him is awesome. I think he's so mysterious. Character. But then I think the Clone Wars obviously fleshes him out a bit. Yeah. Let's talk about the Qui-Gon Jinn's funeral scene. Mace Windu's there chatting with Yoda, because that's all Mace Windu does. He just chats, just sits down on his chair and chats. He's talking to Yoda in this instance, saying, Maul was a Sith. And Yoda's like, Well, there are only two, no more, no less.
Yeah.
And Mace Windu then puts, Maul was either the master or the apprentice. And Yoda's like, Like, I wonder if it was the master or the apprentice. And then the camera pans to Senator Palpatine.
I did notice that, yeah. That's one of the end frames of the film.
I love that.
Yeah.
Really appreciated that. Awesome camera work.
Yeah.
Just a bit of a hint as to who the real Phantom Menace is. Because it's not Jar Jar.
I have different thoughts on that.
Speaking of which, let's talk about what we didn't like.
Okay.
The Jedi Speedrun, in the very first instance, in the very first scene, Obi-Wan Kenobi and Qui-Gon Jinn do this speed run, like Jedi speedrun, they quickly dash out.
Oh, yeah, from the door.
Yeah, I think that's such a stupid decision. Like George
I noticed
Lucas,
that as well, yeah.
This is not an ability that continues on in the Star Wars universe at all.
Yeah.
It is only in this one
This
scene.
one scene.
It's so stupid. You should not have included, like, oh, gosh. So
It just didn't make a lot of sense, did it?
Yeah, didn't like that at all, because it brings up things like, this is obviously the first chronologically this is the first Star Wars movie.
Yep.
So why isn't everybody else speedrunning? Like, surely they should have thought about that. I also didn't like the Trade Federation, but we've discussed that already.
I didn't like the politics in this film, yeah.
So boring. This film's very boring.
Yeah.
But it does have great moments, but it's just very boring in between.
Yeah.
Jar Jar Binks.
Yeah, I can understand why you don't like him, and I can understand why a lot of fans of Star Wars don't like him. I still see him as an average character. I don't really see anything terrible about him. I can see how he was meant to be, comedic relief, and it was just done poorly. He comes out as an average character.
Obviously, the entire character is CGI. Which, I mean, obviously you've got to do facial expressions and things, and that's sort of hard to do with a puppet. But hey, they managed to do it in Empire Strikes Back with Yoda. So, I mean, if you're going to include an alien,
Make it a puppet, yeah. A lot of the times, practical effects is going to look better.
Yeah, and also you touched on Jar Jar's humour there. I think the humour sort of aims towards a younger audience. Like, Jar Jar's always making stupid jokes about, like, I don't know, like farting and just...
Padme's hot.
Yeah. What?
You didn't see that?
No.
To Anakin, he's like, what did he say? He's like, I can't remember what he said.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, he said something about it, yeah.
Chad Jar Jar.
Chad Jar Jar.
Oh, no, I didn't like the humour. Jar Jar Binks is not funny. Yeah, I mean, she is, but, whatever. We move on. Overuse of CGI. This movie has too much CGI. However, I do think in certain scenes, the CGI is fantastic. Like the pod race.
Particularly in the Naboo scenes as well, and the pod race.
Yeah.
Some of the, the panning Naboo scenes showing the whole sort of city looks great. And that's what it should be used for. Obviously, you can't achieve that in practical effects to, the ability that CGI can. But having something, like Jar Jar Binks as a fully fledged CGI character, it's not going to work as well as a puppet.
Yeah, I just didn't really like it. When it does CGI characters in full, it just looks so bad.
Having the mix is where it's going to look the best.
Yeah, exactly. You've got to sort of enhance it with CGI. But characters like Vice Gunray, like the Trade Federation dude who's like, the Senate. He's a puppet, but you can tell that it's enhanced by CGI. So that's the right way to go. But Jar Jar Binks and his sort of race are entirely CGI, and it just it does not hold up, unfortunately. But it was a technical feat at the time, so George Lucas just got a bit trigger happy. Another thing,
he did.
Kid Anakin and Padme's interactions. Why is there an age difference? What's
the age difference? It has to be like 10 years or something close to that.
Why does Star Wars has to do it to the self? Like, why does Star Wars have to do this to itself again? We've already had the sketchy relationship of Luke Skywalker and Leia. We've already had incest. Why do we have to have predatory behavior now from why?
It's just a bit weird.
It doesn't
George Lucas has some questionable motives there.
Maybe there's going to be a Netflix documentary released in like 30 years' time uncovering all of George Lucas's secrets. But maybe not, because we don't want to get sued. I'm sure George Lucas is a very nice guy. Anyway, they don't need to have such an age difference, Anakin and Padme. It doesn't
doesn't add to the story at all. It doesn't make it any better.
Padme's a queen in this movie.
Yeah.
She's obviously an elected official, but she's still so young. Like, I don't understand.
Yeah.
Either just don't make her a queen, make somebody else the queen, and Padme's just tagging along, which is what she's doing for most of the film, because she's pretending to not be the queen.
She's got a,
just
her
weird.
Double, yeah.
But yeah, so why does Star Wars have to do this to itself with relationships? Just even with the sequel trilogy, even the relationship between Rey and Kylo and them kissing at the end, it's just Star Wars cannot do a good relationship, unfortunately.
Yeah, they can't.
But yeah, so anyway, also another quite controversial thing about this film is the midichlorians explaining how the Force works.
Yeah.
So they basically reduce the Force to these cells in your body. And you can basically like take an injection and see whether you're going to be a good Jedi or not. It's like, get tested today.
It's just a bit weird, isn't it?
Yeah, I feel like the Force could have been something that was just left unexplained.
Yeah.
But maybe the fans were sort of, hammering for a
No one was asking for this.
Maybe, I mean, we don't know. We weren't alive in 1999, but...
That is true.
But yeah, I just think the Force could have been something that just went unexplained.
Yeah.
At the end of the movie, we have that Duel of the Fates battle, which is fantastic. But unfortunately, the movie keeps panning back to this Gungan battle, which is entirely CGI.
Yep.
Not only does it break up the incredible sequence between Qui-Gon, Obi-Wan, and Maul, but the Gungan battle... I just didn't feel anything. Like, we don't care for the Gungans. They're just given no reason to care for them.
Yeah.
They're entirely CGI. Everything in this sequence is CGI with the final battle. Because, of course, in Star Wars, we have to have a big battle where a spaceship is blown up and there's, lasers going all over the place on the ground and in the air. But it was just unnecessary in this instance.
Yeah.
I didn't like it at all, to be honest. Anakin in space blowing the control ship up, also kind of unnecessary, but in terms of making us, as an audience, experience how good Anakin is in a starfighter, okay, fair enough.
This kind of sets up the Revenge of the Sith introduction scene, which is incredible in itself. How Anakin is the best starfighter pilot we've ever seen.
Yeah. So... fine, I guess. When Qui-Gon dies, he doesn't Force disappear. Obviously, in this point in time, in this point in history, we've had the original movies where we've had Obi-Wan die, and then Force Ghosts disappear. Obviously, since then, in the sequels, we've had... we've had Luke Skywalker disappear. We've had... and in the original trilogy, of course, we had Yoda disappear.
We did as well, and then we had... Leia disappear as well.
Oh, yeah. I've just completely wiped out The Rise of Skywalker from my memory. Thanks for bringing that up, Jaden. So when Qui-Gon dies, he doesn't Force disappear, and that's an issue because in the original trilogy and in the Clone Wars, we're led to believe that Qui-Gon Jinn was the first Jedi to discover immortality as a Force ghost.
Yeah.
But then he doesn't Force disappear, so... Obviously, that's a retcon that's happened in the Clone Wars, so you can't exactly fault them for it.
Yeah, they hadn't established that yet.
Yeah, but you still can fault them for, obviously, Obi-Wan and Yoda disappearing, so...
Yeah.
Why does Qui-Gon not disappear? Then they just burn him. Which I can imagine that would not smell very nice.
No.
They're all just in the room watching...
breathing it in.
Liam Neeson. It's disgusting. Anything else from you?
No, not really. Just that it's an average film.
Yeah, I'll give my final thoughts. I've wrote a nice 2 sentences that sounds like I wrote a newspaper article about it. Okay, so this movie, it has some fantastic Star Wars moments, such as the pod race and, of course, the final duel.
Yep.
We're introduced to some awesome and iconic characters, such as Qui-Gon, Darth Maul, R2-D2, C-3PO, Obi-Wan, and, of course, Anakin and Padme. The film has great moments, but the majority of the film is boring and leaves you wishing that there was less politics and less weird Gungans in between these iconic moments.
Less weird Gungans.
The movie has some fantastic moments, Star Wars moments, but there's only 2, and the rest is pretty boring.
It's got so much filler in it. It's really a film filled with filler. And that was a very tongue-twisted sentence.
I feel like they could have done more with Anakin's origin as well, maybe, but...
Yeah. I do like the origin stories in this film, actually. I think they set up quite a lot. Obviously, R2-D2, C-3PO...
Yeah, I love it.
Obi-Wan Kenobi, Anakin, awesome. Padme, there's so many. Darth Maul. So many origin stories in this film. And it does it spectacularly. I mean,
yeah, it's very hard to set up a Star Wars universe, you know, especially once we've had the original trilogies and the audience is like, well, how did it begin, George Lucas? And he's like, oh God, I don't know.
Now you're gonna make me do
this.
Like,
I don't know. I don't know. The Jedi, they just sit around. They're in chairs and they're just talking and oh gosh, and suddenly Darth Vader's super powerful, but because why not? He's the chosen one. That's something that was added to this movie, the whole prophecy of the chosen one. That wasn't mentioned in the original trilogy. But yeah, so it's got great moments. Would you recommend that a Star Wars fan rewatch this movie?
Look, if you're going through all of the Star Wars films again and you want to watch it in chronological order, I would start with this film, and that's only because I love Darth Maul and I love the Duel of the Fate scene in this film.
It's a long way to get there, though.
Yeah, if I'm gonna watch all of the Star Wars films, I would watch this. But if you're just gonna watch this, on its own, probably not. I wouldn't recommend it. It's not the best of film, and it's not something that I would sit down on a Saturday night and watch. We are back.
I was just saying, if you're going to start watching the Star Wars movies because you haven't seen them, I feel like you have to start with this movie and you just have to sit through it, unfortunately. Yeah. There are some important moments in this movie that justify certain decisions, certain character decisions later on.
Yeah, it establishes a lot. So,
unfortunately, you're just going to have to sit through it. But as far as the average viewer concerns, if you want to watch, a good Star Wars movie, this is not the one, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Do you want to give a tier rating for yourself? We'll see if we have the same ones. If you've seen on the document, you can probably see my rating. But
I have seen it, and before seeing your rating, I was going to, I'm just going to say it. Throughout this episode, I've been saying, it's an average film, an average sort of, it's the equivalent of the C tier rank, and I was gonna rate it a C tier anyway.
Yeah,
it's an average film, like I've been saying.
I completely agree. I've gone for C tier as well, because I was debating putting it on B for a second because of some spectacular moments and Qui-Gon Jinn. But then I think about the other movies that we might put on the B tier, and this is just not there, unfortunately.
Yeah.
It's not a D, though. It does have those fantastic moments. It is an okay Star Wars story, but it is just that okay.
Yeah.
Anything else, or should we wrap up now?
No, I think we wrap up.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that brings us to the end of today's show. If you would like to follow us on Instagram, you can do so at The Rewatch Pod. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel, which you can find by searching The Rewatch on YouTube. Remember, if you would like to follow the Rewatch official playlist, which I have made, it's a public playlist, you can visit it, follow it at the link in the YouTube description. Now, with regards to next week's episode, we originally planned on spacing out the Star Wars movies, and we do intend to stick to that plan, because obviously we recognise that not everyone is a Star Wars fan.
Like us, yes.
And also, to do with us, we don't want to get Star Wars fatigue. We don't want to...
No, yeah.
You know, that would not be good, because we want to review these movies in sort of as objectively as possible.
Yeah.
But if we run through them all, we might just get caught up in the whole...
We'll get burnt out, yeah.
Yeah. So we'll be tackling the Star Wars movies in chronological order every so often. However, next week... we're not taking a break, unfortunately, for people who aren't Star Wars fans, because we're rewatching Episode 2, Attack of the Clones. It's not going to be too fun.
Yeah.
We decided
it's not the best Star Wars film out there.
That is for sure. Not the worst, though.
No.
We decided to do Attack of the Clones next week because it's a very busy week for both of us.
Yeah.
Obviously, exams and everything like that. So it's going to be a shorter episode. And we don't want to talk about Attack of the Clones for an hour.
I don't think there is content to talk about for an hour in the Attack of the Clones, to be honest.
It's just like this movie, but worse. Oh,
yeah. Well, there you go. You know what the ranking's going to be for that.
Yeah, so we don't want to talk about Attack of the Clones for an hour or an hour and a half.
Yeah.
So we've decided that we'll rewatch Attack of the Clones next week.
Yeah.
So thank you for tuning in to today's episode. All of your support is much appreciated.
Yeah.
Goodbye.
See ya.